Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k video. So before we get into today's video, I just want to say a big huge thank you to Hunter James White for sending in these pictures, for posting them on my Mordian Glory Facebook page. Absolutely fantastic pictures, some really good Steel Legion models. A lot of Steel Legion on the channel recently, but that's because they are one of the best regiments out there, in my humble opinion. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, all the regiments are really good. You know, can't complain really. Even those goofy Catachans are pretty cool. But what I really like about some of these models is the nameplates that are on the bottom of them. Absolutely fantastic. If you could show me where you got those, Hunter, that would be absolutely fantastic, because I could definitely do that. Stick a couple of those to the bases of some of my models. Well, I'm just wondering if they're custom or if you just you sort of get the names that you're given, kind of thing. Don't mind either way. It'd still be really cool to have a few. So if you could leave a comment and let me know where you got them from, that'd be absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, we're going to get into today's video. So it's going to be a bit of a concept video, this one. Not really a tactics video, but it is still important for for players' self-reflection, and B, also for maybe newer players getting into the hobby, how they might want to A, identify themselves, and B, who they might want to keep an eye out for. Okay? What we're going to be talking about is the different types of Warhammer 40k player. Okay? Now, this can be applied to, I say 40k player, but it's basically tabletop games player. I'm not talking about if you're a 40k or if you're historical or if you're a fantasy player. It's nothing like that. I'm more talking about, are you a win at all costs player? Or what is a win at all costs player? What is a casual at all costs player? And what is a couple of the ones that are in between? Okay? Now most people will just be normal people. Most people will be 40k players that want to collect an army they think is cool, and who will buy units based on whether they think they look pretty good. Who'll probably do a little bit of internet research before they buy something, but not heavily. And even if they find that the unit that they're going to buy isn't really super cool, they'll probably want to try and make it work. These tend to be the kind of people that will not use a lot of allies, but might have some. So maybe you've got, an Imperial Guard army, but you've got a squad of space in there as well. Maybe you're using Black Temp. Maybe you've got a Steel Legion army, and you've got a couple of Black Templars in there, or a couple of Blood Angel units, or Salamanders. You know, to represent those forces that fought on Armageddon, for example. But, you know, you're not just allying random stuff together. That's what most people will be. Most people will be normal players, and they'll play games of 40k, and generally speaking, they'll want to get better. Generally speaking, they'll want to get better. And we've talked about this before, sort of the evolution of the wargamer, how most normal 40k players will start off as people who get into it because it's cool, and then they start wanting to get a little bit more. They want to win. You know, at the end of the day, you still want to win with your 40k army. So they'll buy, do a bit of internet research, buy a couple of extra units, do some not tailoring as in against opponent, but tailoring as in they list tightening, list distillation. That's a normal 40k player, and most, they'll start going to some tournaments. And this is where most people will stay in that bracket. Okay, most people will, and this is the kind of player that I am now. I have been all of the players I'm going to talk about, so I can talk about this from first-hand knowledge. I'm not talking about this from internet hypothesis and stereotypes. I'm talking about this from first-hand experience. So this was sort of this is my natural evolution. I started off as a normal 40k player, and I got more and more competitive, and I became almost very close to what is considered a whacker. WAACER. But what it stands for is win at all costs. Okay, a WAAC player. You're a WAAC player. That's not like... It doesn't mean anything. It just stands for win at all costs. Now, win at all costs player is very different to a tournament player. And this is where some people, which we'll be talking about later, they don't draw the distinction. Okay, and a lot of people who never go to tournaments see tournament players instantly as whackers, and they're not. There's a key difference between a tournament player and a whacker. A tournament player is basically how I am now. How I went up to whacker. I've started to come back down a little bit now. A tournament player is someone who will build a good list with the faction that they enjoy, and will play that list, but they're not willing to compromise the fluff of the army. You've made the army as strong as possible within your own moral confines. So an example for this, for me, is my Steel Legion. My Steel Legion list is as good as I can get it, as far as I'm concerned, to take a pure Steel Legion list. There's a few tweaks here and there, but the general premise of having mechanized infantry backed up by some support units, and the way I've done it, that's the way that works best for me. So I've taken that list of tournaments, and I've done okay, but I'm never going to win a tournament. Not one that's got more than 10 or 15 people. A proper tournament with 30, 40 people plus. I'm never going to win one of those tournaments with my army. Because my army is as good as it can get while staying within my own moral confines. Which is, I'm not willing to add in, Space Marine allies. I'm not willing to add in custodes. I'm not willing to add in another element to my army which would massively boost its power but would make no sense in the fluff that I've made for my army. So for my Steel Legion, for example, they are a pure Steel Legion army. They're a rapid reaction force. They are deployed to quickly first wave in to try and stop or slow down whatever is attacking in the Armageddon sector, and that's why they're all mech'd up. That's why they've got loads of equipment hanging off the chimeras and the tanks. They have to basically they have to take everything with them because they're not particularly well supported. They are thrown in to the fray. That's the fluff. So they don't really fight alongside other people. They just get thrown in as the first line of defence. Or second line of defence if you include local PDF forces. So that's a tournament player. Someone who has their own army, who has distilled their list as good as they can get it, but they're not willing to start tearing chunks out and replacing it with more powerful things. Like, I should realistically replace all my Lehman Russes with Custode Bikers or Custode Shield Captains. That's what I should do. Now, a whacker player means to win at all costs. They have no morals. They do not care the background of the army. They do not care the background of the individual units. They have no headcanon. They have no fluff for their army. They don't give a shit about that. They will, whatever is the most powerful combination of units that they can put together within their financial means. I mean, a lot of whacker players have a lot of money, so they can chop and change armies very quickly. But these are the kinds of people that will literally buy an army, run it for 2 months, 3 months, and then when the next hotness is coming along, they will sell their army and get the next new one. They will rarely, and this is no criticism, but they will rarely have time to paint their own models, or paint them also to a high standard if they're doing it themselves, because they'll normally get a painting commissioner to do it for them quickly so they can get the new hotness right on the battlefield. These are the kinds of people that will either really heavily test game-breaking Death Star armies, or will go on the internet and heavily investigate Death Star game-breaking armies. These are the kinds of people that would run just Imperial soup lists, combinations of units that made no sense. You know, for example, Custode bikes with Guardsmen and Blood Angels, and the Blood Angels are just 3 Smash Captains. And the Custodes are just Shield Captains, and the Guardsmen is just a minimum 180 point battalion, and they've only taken that so they can get the most command points as possible, and they can farm them. That is, you know, they'll have the army, and then when that something gets FAQ'd or nerfed, they will get rid of it, and they'll come along the next thing. Maybe they'll be using Talos spam with Drukhari, Dark Elder, to us old school players. They don't care. Now these people are also literally, so not only do they go for the best possible lists, they will win at any cost. That includes cheating. Some of you who watched the London Grand Tournament, we're not going to get into the whole terrain debacle. Some of you watched London Grand Tournament know there's a player there called Alex Harrison. I'm not passing any judgment on this, by the way, guys, but he was banned. He is a very, very much a win at all cost player. And that's not a bad thing. I don't want people to think I'm thinking win at all cost is bad. He is very much a win at all cost player, and he has a bit of a reputation and has been caught cheating on camera multiple times. And he got banned from London Grand Tournament. But the point is he would do anything to win that game, including cheating, nudging models, changing wound dice. So he had the best possible list. He had no morals when it came to building the list. He had no morals when it came to winning the game. The only thing that mattered to him was winning. Well, like I said, I don't want, if by some miracle Alex Harrison listens to this video, I want to make it very clear that I am not slagging him off in any way, shape or form. It's not my place. Those of you who watch the channel know I stoically refuse to get involved in drama like that. Hence why I didn't cover the London Grand Tournament terrain craziness, or any of this general controversy with, I can't remember what the last one was, but London Grand Tournament is the one I can think of. I can't remember what it was. There's like even just general gaming bullshit. I don't really get involved in that. But anyway, the point is that Alex is a good example of potentially what you could consider a win at all cost player, someone who will do anything to win the game, including potentially cheating. I don't want to say he was definitely cheating because, again, I'm not there to point fingers, but I'd say potentially cheating. But also, another side of it, win at all cost players, they don't care about the enjoyment of the game that their opponent, or they don't care about the social contract. Okay? Which is where both, you know, when you enter a game 40k, both sides are there, so both sides should really get something equal out of it. Not necessarily a draw in the game, but both sides should have fun. That's not important to a win at all cost player. Even themselves winning and isn't, even the themselves having fun during the game isn't important. It's winning at any costs. Okay, that's. Hopefully you guys can see the difference between a whacker and just a regular tournament player. Okay. Now on the complete, so whackers tend to get a really bad reputation, I should say. They tend to get a really bad reputation, or are looked down upon. It's quite interesting. Not looked down upon, but are looked upon with hatred, genuine hatred, by another group of people. Obviously they're not liked because of, you know, people don't like playing against them because you generally don't have any fun. But at the end of the day, you might not have fun playing against them. At the end of the day, the justification that they might have is, well, they won. You know, I mean, you can have your they might say to you, have your morals, have your desire to have fun, have your, you know, very personal list to you that you care about. You have all those things, good for you, buddy. No one can take those away from you, but guess what? You didn't win. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. That's what they'll say. I mean, at the end of the day, you still lost. And if that's how you judge your games, your metrics for whether you had a good or bad tournament, you know, that's how the whackers see things. It's purely wins or losses. You know, to them, having the more high ground is unimportant. And again, I want to hammer home. I have been a whacker. I hold my hands up. I have, within as much reason as possible, I have been a whacker. I can tell you now, I ran Leaf Blower in 5th edition. Okay? I went to some very minor events and tournaments in 5th edition, and I took Leaf Blower. What do you think happened there? You know, there's a reason why my Mordian, I have a lot of old style chimeras, you know, and old style russets. That's when I used to be an armoured Leaf Blower player in 5th edition. There you go. And then, because I wasn't super internet savvy, then I didn't have the best Leaf Blower, but I had a pretty good idea of how Leaf Blower worked, and I used it. Now, this video is going on a little bit. The other end of the spectrum, so some of you will hate whacker players, but the other end of the spectrum, which in my opinion is just as bad, because I don't like whackers, by the way. I don't like the general principle of whacking anymore, just because been there, done that. I didn't really enjoy it. I tried doing, you know, I prefer being a regular tournament player. But I've also, when I got back, so I played for a bit of 5th edition, but very, you know, used my Leaf Bow a little bit, but I didn't play as much in 5th edition as I could have done. It was just sort of 4th and 5th edition I didn't play. That was where I took my little break. I'd play it very occasionally, but that was when I became a whacker. Some of you might be saying, well, you weren't playing in tournaments. No, that's not true. But I became a whacker in that time because the few games whenever I was like, I got an opportunity for a game, I didn't want to be a waste of time. I wanted to win. That's all I cared about. If I'm only going to play one game every 6 months, I want to win that game. There you go. When I came back into 6th edition, I didn't want to be a whacker anymore. I was playing games all the time, and I wanted to play people regularly. And I was playing in a local games workshop for most of 6th edition, and as I've said before, games workshop players tend to be very casual. And I became very close to a casual at all costs players. WAAC versus CAC. Now, casual at all costs is in some ways worse than facing a whacker. A whacker will beat you. This is my, and I'm going to not say as much about casual at all cost players because it's not as a bigger group in my opinion. But a casual at all cost player is someone who will only play with completely and utterly casual lists. I'm not even saying fluff lists, but they will refuse to change their army or their lists to improve it in any way, shape or form. They have their army and they like the way that army plays. They have their friend group and they like playing in that friend group. That's casual. They refuse to go to tournaments. They refuse to engage in any kind of competitive play. They're only interested in casual narrative games. Now the problem with these kinds of players, whackers will crush you, but they won't make you feel bad about losing, because at the end of the day, you can say to yourself, he was a whacker. You know, it was always going to be a tough game, but they won't make you feel bad about losing. They'll just crush you, and they won't give a shit about having fun. But they'll just beat you because they're probably just better than you. Casual all cost players will make you feel bad. They will pass comment. Even half joke. It's like one of the times when people half joke, and then really they're not really joking. They're just sort of being mean to you under a thin layer of laughter. And when the problem with casual cosplayers is, because they'll make you feel bad because they're like, well, we're using a competitive army. Why such a whacker? whackers don't call themselves whackers. Casual players are the ones that have come up with this whacker label, and they use it as an insult, as a derogatory term. Whackers don't care about it. They only care about winning. But casual players will insult you and make you feel bad. And if you beat them, they just brush it off. And they go, well, you didn't really... you beat me, but, you were using a cheese list. I've never quite been a complete casual player. I've been close to that line, but not completely. But wherever I've experienced it myself, is it actually caused the almost complete collapse, and it's only just in the last couple of years started recovering the 40k wargaming scene in Liverpool. So there was a group of players called the Liverpool Reapers, which I was part of, and we were a big group, and we used to play in the Scythe all the time and in other around people's houses. Big 40k group. And we all started off as pretty casual players. My brother, who lived in Liverpool for a time, invited me down. I got involved, and what started happening is what naturally happens in the evolution of a wargaming group. Is people wanted to start having local tournaments. I mean, yeah, we've got all these fantastic armies. Wouldn't it be cool to have a fun local tournament? And the casual little cosplayers were like, "Oh, we don't really like that." Oh. But they came, and they sort of came to a few tournaments, but very quickly started being like, "Ugh, don't want to go to the tournaments anymore." Blah. And what happened is essentially the evolution kept going and going and going, and people in the Reapers group got more and more competitive, and then we got together a couple of Liverpool Reapers teams for the team tournament at this is years and years ago, Warrington Warlords team tournament. Now Warrington Warlords, which is the group I'm currently part of, is incredibly competitive. Nice, but you won't face a soft list there. Most new people will start with soft lists, and very quickly they want to win, they want to be part of that competitive scene. So they will either drop out because they don't like it, or they will start improving their armies very quickly. And Liverpool Reapers started getting involved more and more with the Warrington Warlords, and essentially what this happened is there was a big 50-50 split. 50% of us, well, I'd say 60% of us were getting more and more competitive, and 40% hated it. And then there was a massive Facebook argument, and the whole thing just blew massively out of proportion. And just because the casual players were like, we're going to go off and make our own group, you're not going to be invited, we're going to exclude you, which had been the complete opposite of what the Liverpool Reapers had normally done. We've been like, yeah, we're getting competitive, but anyone's welcome. These casual cosplayers, they destroyed the Liverpool Reapers by fracturing everything. The person that was running the Liverpool Reapers was like, fuck this, I'm not dealing with this drama, left. He was holding it all together. We all ended up scattering, going to different gaming groups. The casual cosplayers went off and made their exclusive club, which they wouldn't let anyone join but themselves. And that was it. And basically it's only in the last few years where it's all the Reapers have started coming back together, basically. And that's an example of how casual all cosplayers can be worse than win at all cosplayers. When you first get into 40k, new players will talk about, will hear internet slang about whackers, and they'll hear a lot of bad stuff about whackers. They will hear less about casual cosplayers, but in my opinion, from what I've experienced, I face whackers pretty much. I face tournament to whack play on a very regular basis, and that's fine by me. But casual cosplayers, they're what I actually feel are the bigger threat to 40k's longevity. And so they're the sort of three kinds of player you'll come across. You've got the normal players who will naturally transition into tournament-ish players. You've got the whackers, and you've got the cackers, the casual players. Basically, the point of this video is to help people sort of understand the big difference between tournament and WAAC, and to also understand this sort of growing, what I consider quite bad, casual at all cost players. Now, I want to make people absolutely aware that I'm not saying casual play is bad. I'm not saying every game has to be a fight to the death, not at all. We're talking about casual at all costs. Casual at the expense of fun. Casual at the expense of morals. You must be casual, you must conform, you must be casual. Okay? Most of us, and most people that watch these videos, will be normal 40k players. And that's it basically. But you have to understand the other types of players out there and how to deal with them basically. Casual or cost players, you can tone your list down for them, but at the end of the day they're never going to be satisfied really. They'll always find a reason. And whackers, you either embrace the darkness, throw aside all your morals and also become a whacker, or you just accept that it's going to be a tough game and you're going to learn a lot, but that you're going to lose. There you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave lots of comments. What kind of player are you? What bad experience have you had against whackers? What bad experience have you had against cackers? And please leave lots of comments down in the comment section below. Thank you.